So we did an introduction prior to this introduction because we thought we were going to do a totally different podcast. We thought we were going to do a podcast on community, but you're going to have to wait for that one because 5 minutes in, we decided we were going to do something else. We were going to talk about being married for 8 years. It's been an incredible honor to be married to Elisha for the last 8 years, and he's just made the last 8 years the best of my life. And so it's kind of fun to just take a minute and reflect. We got married on May 7th, and yeah, I'm looking forward to the next date, but we're just going to take a little time and appreciate being married and talk about it. So anyways, if you guys enjoyed this podcast, give it a thumbs up if you're on YouTube, or subscribe on wherever you're listening, and we'll see you on the other side.
The Now That We're a Family podcast.
Okay, so big news. We got a puppy. I'm so excited. Hold on. This is Gentry. We don't show our kids online much anymore, but figured the dog we could still show. Hey, buddy. How's it going? He is a Rhodesian Ridgeback.
Yeah, so for those of you that are listening and not watching, listen, I'm not a dog person. I've never been a dog person. That was actually a big discussion early on in our dating, was animals in general.
Okay, and to give you some context on that, before you continue.
Sure, more context. You know how much I love context.
I had a hamster, a guinea pig. I had a guinea pig. She was actually beautiful. I think most guinea pigs are ugly, but she was really pretty. And her name was Penelope. And Elisha told me when we were dating, he would not hold my hand unless I sold Penelope. He's like, I'm not going to hold your hand as long as you hold that guinea pig. And, I probably could have gotten him to still hold my hand, but I did end up selling Penelope because I didn't want to gross him out. And that was the last we've had of animals in our relationship. So that was 8 years ago, almost 9 years ago now.
Yeah.
And now we have a dog in our house. So we've come a long way.
Yeah. That's not the long-term plan for the dog. It's not going to be like a living room couch dog. It's definitely not going to be in our bedroom ever with us, or the kids' rooms for that matter. But I will say this. I am highly pleased with with the demeanor of this puppy thus far, and honestly with how it looks. This thing looks sweet. This thing, Gentry, our dog, looks awesome. So I'm quickly becoming a dog person. So I think this probably happens with a lot of people. They are not pet people, because even though you had that guinea pig, it's not like you ever really wanted a dog when we were early married.
No, I was a big fan of like outdoor animals and not like pets.
Yes.
Like practical.
And it has zero been a priority for us or something that we were ever considering until recently, and that was entirely because of our children and their excitement for pets. And we did want our kids to be around dogs growing up because we wanted them to have some comfort level with dogs, because obviously dogs are just an animal that you engage with on somewhat of a regular basis in life, and we didn't want them to be paralyzed with fear around dogs. And so we knew we wanted that to be a part of our life, and this is how we're doing it.
Yeah. Also, there was an element. Elisha didn't want a suburban dog, but he said potentially if we move further out of the country, it'd be nice to have a protector or something like that. And it's about 2 years before a puppy becomes more of a protector. So we are starting him in our suburban home.
Yeah, with
plans of one day being further out and wanting a dog so like you said, that when we move further out of the country, we would get a dog.
Yes, I've said that for years. You're right.
Yeah, so that's always been like a part of the plan.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't know what kind of dog we were going to get. And then, because we wanted a protector,
mm-hmm.
but we didn't want one, like we would love to have a lot of people over to our house, lots of little kids, and we didn't want a dog that was going to my uncle had Anatolian Shepherds, and like 6 of them, and they're terrifying because you show up to the house and it's like, yeah, maybe it's gonna bite your head off, maybe it's not.
Yeah.
And we don't want that kind of responsibility as owners, to have everyone survive our pets when they come to our house. So we wanted to protect her, but one that was going to be a little more chill, not a big barker.
Sure.
Short-haired.
Yeah, I really wanted the short-haired. I grew up with German Shepherds, and even though I don't have like bad experiences from my childhood with them. I didn't like how intimidating they were to other people. And
they stink.
Yeah. And ours did for sure. And so again, maybe nobody will view these as like a guard dog, or a protector, but as long as they sound the alarm, if they sound the alarm in the middle of the night, I'll take care of the rest.
Well, just the presence of a dog makes a home a lot more unlikely for someone to like burglarize it or come on the property or something like that, because they just don't know. They don't know if it's going to attack them or not.
Yeah, and honestly, I've had a bit of an integrity crisis, a conscience, because we have outside of all of our doors, beware of dog. We've had that for like the last 6 years as a deterrent from thieves, and I've kind of felt like a liar. So now I feel like it's honest. I'm joking. We haven't had any of those signs.
It's not a bad idea, though. Honestly, that's great. Yeah, it's been really fun just having this new season. It's been a good time in our family's life because we have the bandwidth to take it on in terms of kiddos. Lionel's almost 1 now. He's 10 months. And so I'm not holding him all the time. He's terrified of the puppy. So there's that.
Yes. Well, it's kind of, it's funny, Katie, we were going to talk about community here, but we had also discussed the possibility of doing like an 8-year marriage recap.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know if you already brought up our first year of marriage. You just want to dive into that right now?
Whoa, just podcast switch?
Yeah. Cause my thought is that I want to know like your unfiltered, untampered with, thoughts on our marriage 8 years in. Cause many of you know, but we recently celebrated our 8-year wedding anniversary. We did it in grand fashion. Actually, no, it was probably like the least like celebrant, like celebratory, like fancy anniversary we've ever had. But I think it'll be memorable. So what are your thoughts? The first 8 years of marriage?
Wow. Well, I don't know if I'm ready for this, Elisha.
Yeah.
No.
You're not ready at all?
Well, I mean, it's a totally different episode. What if we got those questions, in the box and we asked each other those?
Okay. No, really?
For 8 years.
Okay, let's do it.
Are you down to do that?
All right. Real quick, guys, before we continue, we're just going to ask that if you enjoyed our podcast, would you be able to share it with friends or family, anyone that you might think could benefit from our podcast or find it encouraging? That's how this podcast reaches more people. We started out with a couple people listening to this podcast, our family members primarily. And then we created some of our own like fake accounts, I think, to go listen to the podcast. We went back and looked at the analytics. We'd feel better about ourselves. But now you're listening to it and hopefully it blesses you. And if you want it to bless other people, please share it. That encourages us and helps the podcast reach more people. And it helps us keep doing what we're doing.
Okay, well, this is Impromptu. We thought it would be fun to do an episode on us being married for 8 years, but we didn't really plan it out. So we're just going to ask each other impromptu questions.
Nice.
Fly by the seat of our pants. Okay. What has been the best anniversary we've had so far?
Yeah, for me, we were pregnant with, you were pregnant with Lewis, so our third. And so that would have been, what year is that? 2019, I believe. So that would have been only our third anniversary. Wow, man, we had our kids came quickly. So we were pregnant with her pretty like far along in we were third trimester, I think, with Lewis. And yeah, cause he was born in June. So yeah, our anniversary is in May. So it would have been third trimester, May 2019. And we went to Victoria, British Columbia. And that was a great trip, I think. From like that pretty awesome like boutique hotel situation, which I thought was great with an awesome view of the water. We walked everywhere, took the bus to Bouchard Gardens. That was actually really fun as well. Went to that great restaurant. Remember that awesome little Italian restaurant down that alley, which is, I think it's famous there in Victoria. So maybe anybody that's been there knows which restaurant I'm talking about. I think that was it. Did we go to a concert as well? Or maybe there's just like live music at one of the places that we were at. that was great. Some great fiddle playing. Anyways, that one really stands out to me.
Me too.
Is that right?
Yeah. That would definitely be hands down my favorite
Oh, wow.
anniversary. We've had some really fun ones.
Yes.
But that was the most extravagant in that we went somewhere different. And I think that that's something, when I say different, Elisha and I have gotten, especially like early on in our marriage, the trips that we went on were all expenses paid trips for a company we worked for. And so they were like usually going to Hawaii at a resort, which was so fun because, you know, we felt like high rollers for a couple days. But that said, we did them pretty consistently. And that was the one type of trip we went on. And so it was really special to just go, like, it wasn't a resort. It was like a little old hotel. Butcher Gardens was gorgeous. We planned our own itinerary and it just felt so different and novel. And I really like unique experiences with Elisha. That's something that I want to do more of going forward, is less potential like luxury and just like really fun. Like one of my favorite overnights we ever did was just, we've talked about it before, but we just went to the little campground and they had like these bouncy little plastic beds and these little, like, you know, it's like a campground, but you could rent a
cabin. Yeah.
A cabin. I mean, but it's like a dry cabin.
Yeah.
There's literally just a bed in it.
Yeah. There's maybe electricity.
There was a little heater.
There's no water
and one light bulb.
Plumbing. Yeah.
And we just stayed up all night eating hot dogs and visiting around the fire. And it was just like so special and different. And so I think that was one of those trips.
That one stands out as well.
Really
the
special.
2020 anniversary was fun too because at the time of our anniversary, May, everything was shut down in 2020. So we couldn't go to like any hotels we wanted to, or, you know, any resorts or anything like that. And so my parents took our kids for the day and we just went on an all day hike, which was really fun, to an awesome waterfall up, by Mount Rainier in Washington, which was awesome. That's another fun memory as well.
Yes, I enjoyed that one too. And this year we were going to go do a project together, and honestly, there was just so much drive time getting there, getting back. Like, we were only gone for 3 hours. Yeah. And we didn't really, we ran errands. We literally like ended up going to Home Depot. We bought some lumber.
Yes. We went to Tractor Supply and then Ace Hardware. We're like, well, that
was our time.
That was it.
So I liked in theory what we were going to do, like our plan, but, and it was special, but I think that,
okay, another one that stands out. Sorry, I know that I'm kind of like prolonging this question.
This is fun.
But what year would that have been? I think it was 2022. So that would have been just 2 anniversaries ago. Yeah, I think 2022. There was that knife fighting seminar that we went to at the Rapier's house with like the Antienza brothers, the Sayak Cauley, I think, system of blade use. They were blademen. Those guys were
gnarly.
They were terrifying.
You wouldn't even see the knife come out or go back in. It was nuts.
That was fun because that was like a 4-hour seminar where like you were practicing with practice blades. Like it was interactive the whole time. So we were doing the drills with each other, and Uncle Wade came as well. And that was really fun. And then it was pouring down rain, and we were out in this field. And it felt like a scene from like Mulan or something. I don't know. That's the first movie that came to my mind. Maybe not the most like masculine movie to mention for the knife fighting scene, but it was awesome. And then we went home, got dressed up, and then went to a really nice dinner. And so like the variation, I think, was really fun that day.
That's really fun. Yeah, doing something novel, like getting your adrenaline going, and then going and being fancy. Like that is a tried and true romantic combination there.
Yes.
Fancy and something where you're kind of grubby and just having fun. So yes, we've had some very good anniversaries. Elisha's done a great job, and we've had a lot of fun. Nice. What? Oh, do you have
I've got a question for you.
We'll just get these questions directed at
All right,
Elisha
what's
today.
one thing you wish you would have known going into marriage?
Oh, just how cool you were. Like how incredible you were. Like I'm dead serious. Like when we got married, I had no idea how amazing you were. I knew you were the coolest guy I'd ever met, but I think I had a lot of fears going into marriage, or expectations, that were all proven wrong. Like you just blew all my expectations out of the water. You were more laid back and funny and easygoing, but also like more of a leader and like put your foot down and than I anticipated, I guess. And so I was able to respect you right away.
Wow.
And yeah, I just admire you and respect you more and more. So I think it would have done away with a lot of fear or trust issues I had going into marriage if I had just known what I know now. But
yeah, I mean, the exact same thing for me. It's funny you say that.
No,
it was the exact same answer.
No, you tell
me.
me what you would actually say.
No, I actually don't have an answer.
That was the first
to
thing that
question.
came to mind.
I mean, mine's, I think, similar in that, like, I didn't know how good I had it, I think. And so it's like if somebody would have told me, I get stressed out retrospectively, when I think of that time period where, so like we dated the first time, we broke up, dated other people, and like I will retrospectively get stressed out. I'm like, that's insane. Like how close I was to missing out on being married to you. And obviously, come our wedding day, I was extremely excited to be married to you. It was like, yes, this is the woman I want to spend the rest of my life with. I'm going to, whatever, I'm gonna do the vows, all of that. And so there was excitement there, but yet had I known then what I know now, the excitement would have just been off the charts. I just had no clue the blessing that I was getting into. I was getting into a really great blessing on that day. And it is interesting because we have heard this before, our dating and engagement was one of the most stressful times of my life, maybe. And I know it was really stressful for you too. And so it makes sense that like I let down a little bit after marriage, and it's funny because I think some of my fears were negated early on in marriage too, because I think a lot of the stress brought out, well, yeah, oftentimes this happens. The stress brings out, like the worst in people sometimes, and fatigue does as well. And we were both burning the candle at both ends. Like I was trying to figure out a way to scrape a living together and find a place to live and whatever, to get a real estate business going, just like pass the real estate exam, all of those things, and working too many jobs, to do any of them well. And, so we were both exhausted, I think, like going into marriage. We were feeling a ton of fatigue. And we'll just say fatigue. What's the saying? Fatigue makes cowards of us all, And so like there was an instant like let down after the first day of marriage. And I think I saw the best version of you where you were so much more easygoing, like you were you were driving to a point that really stressed me out up until our wedding day. And I probably seemed like way more, I don't know how I seemed to you, like subdued or like detached. I don't know what I was.
Yeah, we were kind of like in a push-pull, like our worst sides kind of like going into marriage. We're like, I was like dragging you by the collar somewhere, and you were like digging your heels in.
Yep.
A little bit,
A lot of it. I feel like that was...
It's funny, like looking back, like we didn't work very well together at the time. We were both stressed, and so we were both responding like how we respond, which is like I went overboard in micromanagement, and you went overboard like I'm just going to like internalize everything. So I had no clue what you were thinking or what was going on.
Yeah, I can remember having just I vividly remember moments like evenings at your family's house where we're doing wedding planning or some sort of planning. And I can remember just like telling myself, I'll get this all figured out when I go home and I'm by myself, but I just need to like stick these conversations out here, where it's like, okay, I need to be present in these conversations. But I like checked out of the actual problem solving or being engaged in the conversation.
Yeah, honestly, it doesn't bring back good memories. So let's just move on. Like getting like second and like, I do not like this. Anyways. Okay. What would you say was our hardest year of marriage?
Oh boy.
And the best. What's been the best year of marriage? What's been the hardest year of marriage?
Yeah. 2019, even though, so that anniversary in 2019 was great memories. And then we moved shortly after that. And that really, it's hard because that for me was that was personally the hardest year of our marriage. And we had some really high moments in our marriage during that year though. And I think that this can happen during trying seasons. You can have those moments of camaraderie and companionship where you feel like you're like, well, at least I've got my spouse, right? And that unity is almost strengthened through trials. And I think we had some moments of that, but I'd say overall, it was still the hardest year even on our marriage. Like my personal struggles and challenges, as you know, of course, this happened, it bled into marriage, right? It bled into how I treated you and how I communicated with you. And so I'd say that, what was that? Our fourth year of marriage. Was that? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I would say. But
yeah, I would agree with that. I think we kicked off that year with that anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
So that anniversary was great.
Yeah.
And on that anniversary, we made the decision to move. Like, that's when your dad gave you the job offer and everything on that anniversary, right before he left.
You're right.
So it really kicked off a really hard year for both of us. I think that's the only time in my life I've ever been depressed or like, felt those feelings for extended periods of time.
Yeah.
There's like low moments you go through, but I think we were both just in really hard places personally, trying to connect to each other in a different environment where, we were back in your old hometown.
Yes.
So that brought back a lot of just life.
That was weird. That was bizarre how like it had been 6 years that I hadn't lived there, and I go back and then it's like all of a sudden old negative ruts and patterns instantly started up again. Which I'm sure that's happened with other people as well when they go back to particular places. And I think that was one of the few years in our marriage where it felt like we were living these like parallel lives, where I had my job, my hobbies, like my books I was reading, and then you had your hobbies and you had your like pursuits and things you're excited about, what you would read. I felt like we did very little together.
We thought that's what we wanted. And so I think that's part of it too. It was kind of an experimental year. And I think sometimes you go through years where that happens, because up until this point, we'd been doing a lot of stuff together. We'd been kind of jimmy rigging our finances and our life. And we thought, oh, this is going to be really great. Like, Elisha's just going to have this job. He's going to work outside the home. You didn't want to talk about real estate with me. You're like, I'm just going to handle this side of stuff. And then you handle the home side of stuff. And that's when I was like growing my YouTube channel and all that, very just in my own little world there. Yeah. And we did the podcast together. But I will say that year we had to pause, delete podcast, restart podcast almost every week.
Wow.
Well, it didn't help. We would do it at like 10:30 or 11 at night. So we were both like emotional and tired. And then, but I think a lot of people would probably relate to that. Like, you're at this crux in your family where you have little children, your finances aren't where you want them to be. You're still trying to figure out your marriage identity and roles and how to love the other person. And so, but it also comes with almost like year 3 and 4 in marriage can almost be like, feel a little hopeless when you're like, okay, now we have this amount of history together. You're still doing these things that make me feel this way. I'm still doing these things that make you feel this way. And you start to look at the other person and be like, this is how it's always going to be. Like, I'm going to be married to you for 60 years and we're going to always have these arguments and never be on the same page. Because I think like your first couple years of marriage, you can accredit it to like, okay, we don't know each other very well. We're stepping on each other's toes, but we're going to learn this dance. And then once you have some history of like, you've already apologized for that and it happened again. I think I did this a lot with Elisha at this year in our marriage. It was like, okay, we still can't have these conversations. I'm still reacting the same way to stuff. Like, just the maturation process wasn't as far along as we'd hoped it would be in our marriage. But then like, I would say later that year, going into our 5th year, we had tons of breakthroughs and our marriage was like in a totally different place the next year.
Yeah, that is actually
Isn't that
crazy
weird?
to think about that year, because that's not that long ago. And yet I feel like a different person from that moment until now. I feel like our marriage is in a completely different place. You talked about not having an identity in your family. I feel like that's a real thing, because like the answer is always like, okay, my primary identity is in Christ. And we knew that. And like our marriage was submitted to Christ and we wanted our family submitted to Christ, but we had no idea what that looked like. We didn't know how that was going to play out, what our strengths were as a family, what our strengths were even as a married couple at that point. Because the first 2.5 to 3 years of marriage, we had done everything together. Even when I first started real estate in Bend, you were very helpful with that. And then we did MLM business together. We did Vopri Music Academy together. We started the podcast there together. Like there was a bunch of things that, I remember that MrBend.com, you building out that website with me for my real estate.
It's honestly a really good
business.
idea.
Yeah. I mean, that's cool. We had that domain, do we still own that domain? Actually, we probably sell that.
We own like
Pretty
72 domains, like classic entrepreneur.
We love live music in our home. I think you would love live music in your home if you don't already enjoy it in your home. And that's why we made Voperg Music Academy. Check out the coupon below and you get a special discount for being a listener of this podcast. And you can bring live music into your home. Piano, guitar, fiddle, mandolin, ukulele. If any of those instruments sound like fun to you to learn or to have your children learn, go check it out. But everything was together. And I think after that 3 years, we had just had our third baby and nothing was firing. Nothing had clicked. It's like... And in hindsight, it's like so obvious. We were trying too many things. It's easy to see that now. But at the time, when nothing is quite working, you want to try the next thing because you don't have confidence that the other thing is going to work. Anyways, so nothing was really working. We were stressed financially. We'd put all of our time into these things. And so in a lot of ways, it felt just kind of like this abandonment of those entrepreneurial dreams. And it's like, I just need to go get a stable job. And a lot of our pain points were arguments over money or business, because like business decisions would obviously bleed into money decisions, and vice versa. And so we're like, we just need to have a clean separation here. And
I think there was stuff like, I know, sorry, I didn't
go
on you there, but I think like as you said that like business and money things, it was like I felt shut out of Elisha doing real estate, and so like I wanted to be a part of that in a little bit, but he wanted to own something himself, and then I was pursuing now all the entrepreneurial stuff by myself. Mm-hmm. And Elisha, I feel like, had maybe some jealousy towards that, knowing like, okay, I need to have this stable job to provide, but like, I genuinely really like entrepreneurialism, and now you get to do it all. Yeah. I don't know if you would say that, but I think
probably. I mean, because
we kind of had those cycles.
I certainly didn't love the 9 to 5. And so I wouldn't be surprised if there are moments of like, oh, you get to work on all this stuff, that we were working on together. I mean. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Anyways, it was an interesting year.
It was. And
the Lord grew us a lot though.
Yeah, going through that, because we had the low moments but then we had just such profound breakthroughs literally at right around the 1 year mark, because it's kind of crazy that you can track back to that anniversary, because our anniversary in May, we had that job offer, we talked about it, which led to we accepted, which led to the move about a month and a half later. And then, yes, shortly after our next anniversary, a couple things happened. I think even just like personally in our faith, like we started reading different books. We watched that American Gospel documentary together. That was the first time I felt like you and I had really connected on like, just from like a theological standpoint, where like the gospel and the profundity of it and the ramifications of it really struck us together, to a point where we were both like teary-eyed over the same message. So that was cool. And then, that actually was a huge turning point.
Yeah, it was. It was.
Yeah. There's that one time too, I was really upset, and I sent you that long text message. Remember that?
This was still back when we used to send each other text messages when we were mad.
Yeah. Well, it was easier to text on the iPhones, so who knows? We might still do that if we didn't have
we wouldn't.
phones.
We wouldn't, because we could still send iMessages on our cell phones, and like you just don't do that. Like it's a terrible thing, because one, everything comes across stronger automatically. I think I read somewhere that the written word has 3 times the weight of a spoken word. Yeah. That's why it's like you want to soften things up with like emojis, or if you don't use emojis, like, nice language, because it's going to hit harder than your normal words would. And then you also feel a lot more bold to say things you wouldn't say. So it's just like dangerous.
And it also, it's not a conversation. It's just this one-sided, monologue. And so you don't have to be checked in anything. Like you're not giving the other person any opportunity to like explain themselves, and I get like with the courageous conversation, you're not supposed to, complain, explain, or blame. Yeah. And so I think there is that element of like, you get the last word. You're like, there it is. It's final. I put it all out there, all the things I've got an issue with.
What was this text though? I don't really remember it.
I actually don't remember what prompted it, but I can remember that, It really worked. So I stand by it. No, I'm joking. You were extremely gracious. And so we talked about it, but I think it was like, I felt like I couldn't start, we've talked about this before. I couldn't start a conversation, and really like I like to pontificate. I like to give context and all those things. And I felt like when I was setting up a conversation, I would get shut down before even getting to the reason I was bringing it up. In like the context,
it's like I couldn't
preface.
agree with the preface, so we
Yes.
just start arguing about the preface, and he's like, "That wasn't even the point. I was
Yes.
just trying to give context for
Right.
the point,
Right.
And we never make it to the point."
Yes, yeah. It's like you know downtown where there's that roundabout that's totally unnecessary. Where the other day you're like, oh, I think that's necessary. We need that roundabout. You know, and you're like, okay, man, yeah.
Sorry, that's terrible.
No,
Hopefully, we aren't the only marriage that has done this, but I do feel like we've gotten a lot better at that.
no doubt.
Right.
And I hope I've gotten better at not leading into conversations with such like jarring prefaces. You know.
Well, sometimes you're more gracious and not like I don't have to silently agree to the first three things.
Yes.
You aren't assuming I agree.
Right.
But at the same time, I think I've hopefully gotten better at just being like, okay, this isn't the point. You know, he's just assuming that so we can move into the what actually matters.
Yes.
This isn't actually what matters.
At least what matters to me, and then we can have another conversation about
If the assumptions were really off, we could talk about those. Yeah. So anyways, year 4, that was year 4. We worked through a lot of things. I feel like we gained a lot of trust that year, though. As like hard as it was, I feel like that was a year where I feel like we started keeping shorter accounts. I feel like I really stopped blowing up as quickly and as dramatically, and Elisha started opening up more before maybe he was ready. And we did do a ton of courageous conversations that year. And yeah, I think I took that text so seriously as I was like, oh, he's really telling me what's on his heart. And I feel like you did that consistently that year towards the end of it. And we really started like getting somewhere. Because I think I was so frustrated at not being unified with you at that point. I was willing to be like, okay, I want to hear you out. I'm not going to just like jump to conclusions like a little chihuahua.
Wow. Yeah, that actually, I feel like, thanks for doing that. Seriously, that took a ton of humility.
Thank you.
I think you were able to, and I admire this big time about you. You were able to not overlook, but like press pause on some of your ideals and principles that you were that were right, that were like, you know, better than whatever principles I had in that particular subject. You're able to like overlook them for a season to hear me out on what I would consider, you know, at the time I considered to be a deeper or more significant point, you know, or subject. And you, whether it was or wasn't, you just chose to see it as being more important because it was important to me. And that was extremely humbling to me as you know, your husband at the time. Wait, I'm still your husband. Sorry. Yeah.
As your husband at the time.
At the time. No, and you've continued to do that. And it's really inspirational because it's I guess, I don't know how to even articulate it. Maybe you can say what it was, where it's like, you're not compromising on your principles, but you're not like letting them get in the way of the relationship that matters, you know, more to you than those principles. And it's cool because I think you've won me over to a lot of those principles, you know, as what is it, Corinthians or whatever, by the subtle conversation of the wife, like winning your husband over, the quiet.
Peter. Yeah, First Peter, I believe.
The quiet conversation of the wife. But I'm grateful for your patience in that season. Anyways, yeah.
Well, I think I'd realized when I finally started listening that I'd been making the wrong assumptions of you. And I'd been trying to be your mother, you know, and then when you're trying to do that and when you aren't trusting someone or you're just assuming things about them and always jumping to conclusions, then like, I feel like you were the really patient one in our marriage because it's like, that's not a fun place for that person to live. And then also you never actually get to learn who that person is because you're always too scared to just let them be themselves and prove themselves to you, you know? And I don't know why that year I just grew in so much trust and respect of you and realizing like, oh, like Elisha's my husband and my leader and our children's father. And he's given me no reason to be constantly like freaking out about everything. That's the worst. Anyways, I still want to grow in this, but I am just, so yeah, it was a new era for our marriage. So it was like the first 3 years we're figuring, just, living on love, figuring everything out about each other. You have the real high highs and the real low lows, but you're excited. Everything's new.
Yeah.
And then 4th year was kind of like, okay, I thought we would be better at this than we are right now, maybe. And then year 5, things start going up again.
Yeah. Things took a turn.
But what would you say was our best year
Our best year?
so far?
Oh, okay. Was that your question?
Well, I said worst and best.
Oh, worst
and I
and
agree
best.
with you. The
On
4th
the
was
worst.
hardest.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I mean, this most recent one seems like it's been the best.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, it's been awesome. Yeah, no doubt. Like, just as far as where we're at with in our marriage, but then just the things we get to enjoy in our overall life, our kids, the development of our children, our church, how much we are like-minded and united in that. And the projects we get to work on together. Like for instance, we do this podcast consistently together, and there's zero tension or animosity that ever pops up in like doing the podcast together. And
Yeah,
that
now it's
wasn't
really
the
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
that's
all of
true.
our other businesses, that would always be mixed in there, where one was, dragging the other along, or the other one was like, hey, we need to do this. Or like, I don't feel like doing it. And that's zero with this. We've really like shed all of those other ventures that we did that, or we've adjusted in a way. So it's like, you've kind of been able to move on from them. And so that it's not as, we don't have that tension in those other businesses. So yeah, I'd say this year has been, we've done a lot of dreaming. We've done a lot of growing. What's interesting is it's been one of the more I don't know. Life's, I know, only going to grow in complexity as our children grow, and as our family grows. But I would say that this has had the most external stress than any year in our marriage. We talked about that 4th year, there was stress, but I would say this most recent year has had the most external stress than any other year in our marriage. And yet I feel like you and I have been extremely united throughout the midst of it, which has been, I don't know, that's such a blessing to be able to feel like you're on mission together. Going back to that Gary Thomas quote, it's like, don't worry about falling out of love, worry about falling out of purpose. And even just the purpose of a day where it's like, oh wow, we have all these things, or of a week or of a month where we're united on what these, hurdles are we need to jump over, and the hoops are that we need to jump through, and like we're clear on them and we do it together. I think we've been far better at doing that, and it's been enjoyable.
Yeah, I agree. It's kind of crazy because we knew this year going into 2024 what we were signing ourselves up for, because a lot of these complexities we opted for.
Yes.
And we had the choice to keep life more simple or to opt for a more complex life. And we were like, we're going to go for it. We're going to say yes to all these things at the same time. It's going to bring a lot of stress. But it has been so cool, like you said, as we've juggled that complexity and all the moving parts in our life right now, to just feel like so much on a team with you. And so far, it's never been like, not once, knock on wood if I was superstitious, you versus me in any of these settings. I feel like you're my biggest advocate, whatever we're going through. And even when because when you're going through stressful seasons, you can end up with like tempers being more short or nerves being more on edge. And I just feel like you and I have just always been a team. Like, we're going to do this. And
yes.
And it's just the coolest feeling ever to feel like, okay, life is not smooth sailing, but like, it's so much fun being here with you,
right?
And like, we have a great time,
right?
Even though life's crazy right now.
And even those like handful of times where, the fuses have gotten a little short, or, tempers have been flared, I felt like neither one of us were ever the object of the other person's wrath, or anger, which I think is huge. Like that's a huge blessing, because that so often happens. It's so unfortunate where the external forces, and we've certainly experienced this, like the problem's not your spouse, but you take it out on your spouse, and you choose to make you make up in your head that your spouse is the problem. And they're the reason why you're feeling this stress or this anxiety, or like you're feeling like a failure, and you take it out on them. And that's obviously unfortunate. I think it's more common than not. And so to be able to experience struggles, but then to not have your spouse, be an ally and to view your spouse as an ally rather than, the enemy is extremely helpful.
Yeah.
Okay. We've got a question for you. What are you most looking forward to about the next 8 years of our marriage?
8 years.
Yeah. So let's double this thing. 16 years into marriage. What will have needed to happen in order for you to be extremely satisfied? How does that question go? What will have needed to happen 8 years from now if we're sitting here together talking for you to feel great about things?
That's crazy. We'll have a child that has a permit.
Whoa.
Almost driving.
Yeah. Yep.
Because he's 7.
He's 7
right?
now. Yeah. Okay.
Which I'm honestly really looking forward to already, having a licensed driver.
I think, can you get your driver's license at 15 in Idaho? I think maybe you can.
I don't know.
Yeah, so he might have his driver's license.
Maybe, but the second he can get it, he's going to get it.
Yes.
Because, yeah, that's the plan.
We can't afford a full-time driver now, so it's going to be him,
Well, there's just too many. Like right now, we have one car, and I'm already wanting a second driver. I think because I want to still stay home, so I want someone to go run all the errands. Well, not just run the errands, but be able to go to his own stuff and take siblings places, and So I'm looking forward to that. But
okay, that's the one thing you want to have happen in 8 years from now, to have one of your children driving. Right? That's clearly
I have succeeded.
That's like the biggest pain point in your life right now, is having to drive places.
No, but I think as we're looking into extracurriculars for our kids, and I think through logistics of all of it, I think, wow, it would be so nice if they could drive themselves into some of this.
Yes. We should look into getting a second car, because I do think that would actually simplify a lot of these things.
Which we're doing.
Actively? I'm not. Are you
I
looking
have
into
been, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's, wow.
I've been Google searching up the wazoo since you know me. You mentioned that like a week ago, and so I've been doing Google searches immediately.
Good.
Who knows when it's going to happen, but I do think we're going into an era of the 2-car Votberg household. We've had one car since, at least for 7.5 years of our marriage. Maybe for 3 months, right when we got married, we had your car before we sold it, and then we bought our Explorer while we still owned my little car.
That's right. So there was some overlap there. Okay.
For maybe 2 or 3 months, and then that got totaled.
Yeah.
And we went back to one car. So
yeah, you're right. That's a good point.
Most of our marriage.
Yeah, it's just been one car.
Elisha doesn't let me leave the house.
No.
No, anyways. So, yeah, 2 cars is in the future, though. So maybe 2 cars and a second driver.
Right. Yeah.
I think I would like to be, I don't know, Elisha. I think a lot of where I want to be in 8 years is maybe a little personal.
Oh.
Like, between you and me. I don't know if I like...
Well, will you tell me about it later?
I don't know if I'm like ready to share my soul on like where I want to be in a decade.
All right.
What about you? Is there
I think, I'll just keep it like more kind of...
You go first, and I'll see what you're
like. I'm just thinking like practical things, So I'd love to be living on property in a house where we can comfortably host family, especially seeing now that it doesn't look like any of our immediate family is going to be living close to us, or at least anytime soon. They're all pretty settled in their various towns. I really want to be able to facilitate hosting them for multiple days. So I'd love to be doing that. I'd love each one of our children, I think, to be growing, like be at a place academically where they are very capable, jumping into college, crushing college, regardless of whether or not they choose to do that, but have done the work over the next 8 years with them so that they are prepared and set up for that. I'd love to have a company built, whether it's Vopert Music Academy, whether it's some of the other businesses you and I have talked about. I'd like to have it built where it's an actual organization where there are numerous positions that are like high, like career type positions, like family wage type positions that my kids could then start training for, whether that's through college or, an internship somewhere that we could send them to. Again, Leanne's only going to be almost 16, but I'd really like to be having a company getting to that place where those positions are starting to be formed in our company, so that it's not just, yeah, so that like there's a ton of growth opportunity within our own family business that they can work in and then, someday take over and take to the next level. Or they could have offshoots of that business. Like every business has its whatever, service provider. And so it's like, do they want to get into that field of providing services to our type of business, if they want to start their own business. So that's something. I think our personal life, it's funny. I want it to be more scheduled and structured. Like I want to be planning our like romantic getaways a year in advance. And I want to be planning our family vacations a year in advance. I want to have like, even though we love freedom, that was a huge reason we got into entrepreneurialism. I'm starting to see more and more that planning is not at odds with freedom. Like, because what you want is the freedom to plan and to fill your calendar with the things that you value the most. And as we've gone on in marriage, I think we're starting to see more and more what we are actually, what we care about, the areas of service that we really know for a matter of fact that we're like, yes, we want to pour time and energy and money into that. We know more and more how we rest and how we rejuvenate. We know more and more how you and I enjoy romantic getaways, and we know the places where we want to take our kids for experiences. So it's like, well, man, like let's actually plan that out in advance and have it, and have it kind of set in stone more or less, buy the plane tickets, book the hotel, and really be able to like look at a year in January 1 and know what each month and what each quarter is going to look like. I want to get better at doing that. We don't need to wait until 8 years. I just want that to be started to be incorporated. So those are some things.
That's great, Elisha. That makes me very excited about the next 8 years. Yeah, it does.
You can get on board with that?
I'm way on board. I'm on board with going anywhere with you.
All right.
Honestly, but I mean, I like a lot of what you like, so I think that's what makes it so fun.
Are you more excited about the next 8 years than you were these previous 8 years, or less excited?
Oh, way more.
Oh, there we go.
Way more.
There we go.
Kidding? I mean, I'm an excitable person. The last 8 years have been the best 8 years of my life, the best years of my life for sure. And I've lived an incredible life where it's just been very blessed. And so, yeah, I'm just really excited for what the Lord has in store for us. Every year that our children grow, it is so fun to watch them grow. I think it brings new depth into our marriage too, because I'm seeing Elisha, parent our children and work through the issues that are getting slightly more complex with them. And it's so sweet. It's so encouraging. Just tonight we were working on our 6 songs of summer song, this little light of mine. And it actually sounded pretty good, like as good as we've been able to make music sound, I feel like, in our home. And I was just like, this is going to be so fun. I guess every year, like the more we build into our family culture, the more it gives back. And so I'm just really excited about 8 years of building family culture and being on mission together, and how that's going to continue to give back, community-wise, church-wise. And I mean, just in marriage too, like every single year has gotten more fun, more intimate, like emotionally, and obviously physically, it's gotten more fun too. It's got better and better. And so that's really rewarding too. I don't see why that can't keep getting better and more spontaneous. I think we've gotten a lot more adventuresome and spontaneous having 5 children than we ever did when it was just us.
Yeah.
And so I think it's fun to see that side of our marriage grow too, and be like, oh, this can just keep getting more and more fun. It doesn't have to be a waning side of your marriage. So yeah, I'm looking forward to getting to know you more and continue to work on things together. I think I love working on things with Elisha. It is my favorite thing to do. And so I'm excited to maybe pivot some of those things. And like you said, have more freedom to work together on the areas that matter most to us, and not have to do the things that are kind of necessary that we're doing right now. And instead just maybe spend more of our time on the things that are like, oh yeah, these are like A-list activities. We both love pouring into these.
Yes.
And then we don't have to spend so much time working on stuff that's more fatiguing to us. But it's all rewarding and enjoyable. So I'm really grateful to do it. And I want to continue more of the same, I guess. I never want to stop working on things with you. So
yeah, same. Yeah, it is. Yeah. Another area that sorry, just one more thought.
I love it. I love your thoughts.
I do want to grow. I think you and I have done this recently, and I'm sure we've done our whole marriage. But I don't know if you can ever get to this point, but have a confidence in like everything that you're doing and like why you're doing it. You know, it's like the whole like what's the whole white horse in tagline. I think is like, know what you believe and why you believe it. I want that, and then I want to see it then. And then I want to be able to take that into what I do. It's like, know why you do it. So it's like, know what you believe and why you believe it. And then know why you do what you do, know what you do and why you do what you do, and have it be backed theologically. I think is something that I really want. It's like, because our theology obviously is coming out in everything that we do, whether we are conscientious of it or not. And I want it to be rooted in God's word. Going back, even just, today at church, even though it was just mentioned in passing that the Great Commission to make disciples, teaching them all I have done and taught, and it's like I love teaching what Jesus has done, what he's accomplished on our behalf, right? Like that, his substitutionary death, the life we get to live because of it, but then all that he taught, like all of his commandments, all of the things that he cares about, like that I'm not fully, believe it or not, I'm not fully aware of what that all is, but I want to study God's word and to really have that, just to be more confident in each, like in the schooling choices we're making for our children, and the decisions we're making, where we're putting our money, how we're investing our time. I don't want it to be like rigid, like, oh, we're doing this because this is, I want it to be filled with like confidence, just kind of like, no, this is backed by something that we actually believe, that's beyond like, oh, this seems like a good idea from a business standpoint, but to have it be backed with like, no, we believe in this, and are convicted regarding this.
Yeah, I think I'm a little intimidated by the next 8 years, because it's like, okay, we're going to be reaping a lot of what we sow. Like we're in a major sowing season for the next 8 years. Like we're sowing in our faith, we're sowing into our marriage, we're sowing into who our children are going to be as young adults. And what are we showing them that we value? And what are we telling them that we value? And what skills and capabilities are we building into them? And it takes a lot of time and effort. And obviously there's so many things out there, and you kind of have to pick.
Yes.
What are you going to be good at? What are you going to focus in on? And I think it's just a lot of responsibility on us as the parents to seek the Lord and be discerning on what he has for our children, because you can't say yes to everything, and what he has for our family, and be confident in saying no to things, and confident in what we're saying yes to, and why we're saying yes to it, like you said. So I really feel like, honestly, I need to get to bed tonight because I'm starting to feel like...
Well, no, we'll wrap this up because I'm with you.
Lot.
I'm glad you said that. That's sobering. We've got like 8 years, and we're really going to start actually seeing the fruits.
Yeah.
Like, because we're doing family Bible times. We did it tonight. We're doing it. And you do your morning routine with the kids. We're pouring into them. We're training them. We're homeschooling them. We want these things to produce godly fruit, godly character. And there is an element of the unknown when you're doing these things. Like, you're trusting in the Lord. Okay, Lord, you're going to have to bring the fruit. Like, but also it's like we plant the seeds, like we tend the garden. We are stewards of these things that he's given us, and what are through his grace, what is going to be the fruit of the work that we've put in here through our labor. And that's going to be really, wow, we're going to see it in 8 years. Yeah. We're really going to be seeing it. And that's sobering. I don't want to lose focus.
No, I don't.
Not just, even I think of the next 8 years, it's like, just dial it in the next 8 years. And of course you'll keep going, but it's like, whoa, it's serious business right now with our children.
Yeah. I feel like we've been practicing for the last 8 years. When I look at like, the Lord really is so gracious to let you into family easy, know, and you're able to kind of bumble around and, kind of get your footing, and, but I feel like everything really matters right now.
It does.
Every single night, every single day. And that's not, to have a perfectionistic mindset.
It's like a sober mindset.
Yeah, but it is a sober mindset of like, okay, what am I consistent in? Because like, we have been practicing. This is the real game right now.
It is.
With our kids and with our marriage. And
absolutely. You lean more and more into God's grace and his mercy, and you fall on your knees time and time again when you see your insufficiencies, but then you don't wallow in your shortcomings. You don't wallow in your, or you don't like give into it. Like, oh, well, we're not doing it perfectly, but anyway, it doesn't matter. The Lord's going to have to do it either way. It's like, well, no, he's given us, his means. He's given us his means, but he's given us his word. And so when you do have those moments of shortcoming, you fall on your knees, you thank the Lord for his grace, his mercy that's new every morning. And then you get up the next morning and you like pour into your children. I don't know. That's what I'm telling myself anyways. Because I think I'd be really good at just wallowing. It's kind of like, you know what? This week's kind of blown. Like, next week's a new week. It's like,
you don't do that though.
No, but it's easy to do, I think. And to let, like you said, I don't want to let off the gas. I don't want weeks to go away. Yeah, we'll have bad days. We'll have bad moments. But I don't want like weeks and months to go by where I'm just kind of checked out.
Yeah.
Anyways, folks, thank you all so much for listening. We'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.